Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another Puremix live stream. My name is Mark Abrams, and I'm here with the incredible Mick Guzauski. It's gonna be awesome. How you doing, Mick?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Awesome. Um,
People
Before we get
here.
started, I think we have to address something. I'm really curious with everything that's going on. How are you protecting yourself from the coronavirus?
Well, the usual quarantine thing, and if you heard our fearless leader last night, who I don't listen to on live, but I always check the news in the morning, he was suggesting ultraviolet light and injecting disinfectants. So in this control room, it's all LEDs, so there goes the ultraviolet light. But
Right.
just to be safe and to make it through this session,
Perfect.
what a high! That is great.
It's good stuff. Nice. Did you have another way of administering that?
Oh yeah, I've got that too.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah,
Awesome. So you're all
yeah.
set to go. You're staying home, staying
So
safe, doing some mixing, and injecting yourself with Clorox. So,
yeah, and that's officially the federal government's position,
yeah,
to or to keep from it. So
such
Clorox seems good.
such a good citizen. Awesome. Well, we are here to do a mix today. So I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to do and what you're working on, and then we'll jump in and get started. Uh, so earlier, well, late last year into early this year, we were releasing a start to finish series from Greg Wells. And what that was we went into Sunset Sound with Greg and an artist that he's working with named Bryce Drew. Bryce came in with a song that she had written the kind of the first verse and the chorus for, but she didn't have like a second verse or a bridge. So we actually saw them write the rest of the song on camera. And then Greg played, he's a multi instrumentalist as well as an amazing producer and mixer and engineer and everything. So he played drums on that, he played bass, guitar, keyboards. Bryce also played guitar and sang. So we literally saw everything that would happen when an artist comes into the studio with Greg Wells and has part of a song. So they finished that together and then did the entire production on camera. And it wrapped up with them going to Brian Lucy's studio to do the master for it. So we thought it'd be fun to do another version of that mix with Mick Guzauski. So yeah,
Here it is. Well, anyways, I thought Greg's mix was great on it. And there was nothing for me to improve about the mix since it was perfect. But since we're doing this, I wanted to take a slightly different approach, maybe, as say, maybe a little more pop approach, little uh, how would you say, a little a little wetter in spots, little brighter. His original mix was so honest and so real sounding. There's no critique I could do, and it was sort of in a way a little embarrassing to say, okay, I'm going to mix this
mm,
thing, and um, you know, and it definitely made it sound a little different. So
cool,
I'll play it for you once, then we'll deconstruct it.
awesome. Mick, could you share your screen while you do that?
House numbers, zip codes, birthdays, and airplane roads. I can never pass them by. I rearrange them, add them up, multiply till I find luck. Anything to call it a sign. And maybe I'm out of my mind. I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. New city, no doubt. 2 weeks to get off my friend's couch. Cutting it close, but I'll be fine. like nothing's going right. But the second I look at the time, I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got something that I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I'm not looking where I'm supposed to be. I see my lucky number. I see my lucky number. I see 19. I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Awesome. Mick sounds great.
Thanks.
That's great. Mick, could you share your screen with us?
Oh, I'm not on shared screen. I'm sorry.
Not yet. No, no worries. Yeah, it's sounding great. So I just sent you the files a day or so ago, right? It was,
Yeah. Just, I mean, I just started this yesterday. Yeah, I just did this yesterday.
Yeah.
Wait, let me try to screen back here. My Zoom screen got real small. Hold on. Let's make it bigger. Anyways, now that my screen is shared, I
Mhm.
can't see you.
Oh, that's okay. Not much to look at.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, you can see my Pro Tools.
Yeah, this is great. It looks good. Cool. So we thought for the purposes of this stream to basically explain the best way that we could of what you do, that you did a mix beforehand, and then we're gonna go through and you're gonna kind of deconstruct it for us, right?
Yeah, I was thinking originally, hey, there's not a lot of tracks. We'll just do this whole thing online. Then I started getting into it and realizing that there was more I wanted to do. And so I actually did the mix yesterday, and I'll just go through the whole process
Awesome.
of how I did it. Anyways, let's start in the beginning of the song. Let's play this.
House numbers, zip codes, birthday.
Now, since the song starts around that acoustic guitar, that was really what I put up first, and got that how I wanted to sound. It's um,
Mm-hmm.
all well, all I did really was cut back a little, about 160. That's where things get a little muddled and a little muffled there, and then did a 12 dB per octave roll off on the low end, just to make the guitar not quite as fat, because especially when the bass comes in and the drums come in, there can be a lot of buildup in that higher bass, lower mid region. So to keep clarity, I'm just rolling a little low end off of that, and just a little sparkle up here, 15K. There's a stereo track and a mono track. I'm not sure exactly how it was mic'd, but to me, both work together really nicely, mixed about equally. And on the stereo track, there's I'm doing about the same thing, but you see this, if anybody's familiar with the FabFilter Pro Q3, it's an equalizer. It also has a function dynamically where you can adjust how much extra cut or boost dynamically it'll have with the signal. So if the low end gets a little out of perspective, this is going to pull it back a little bit.
House numbers, zip codes, birthdays, and airplane roads. I can never pass.
So it's a nice feature on that EQ because you can keep things nice and rich, and still, if an area of frequencies is going to go out of perspective, you can let it dynamically cut that. So pretty much started this mix with the guitar, kept it really dry. Just trying to go for a little more size on the mix, but I wanted to keep the intimacy at the core of it with the guitar and piano. So I started with that, then started working on the drums, and let me just get all these tracks up here.
Awesome.
Okay, so on I made the drums a little wetter than on Greg's mix. Okay, and the thing I found out here is on this song, this really is pretty normal that this happens, is that I ended up having the reverb a little longer than I originally had it set for. Using this Altiverb just came out last week with this some new with some new impulse responses. They have a Eventide 2016, which has always been one of my favorite reverbs. I have one. It's not in great health, but and I did do impulse responses of it. It works, but I like what they did at Altiverb. I think they had a nicer example of a 2016. Anyways, the reverb is about 2.5 seconds. When I first set up the mix, and the reason I'm going through this is to show how things change once it's in the perspective of a mix. I had this reverb set at, I don't know why it doesn't go right to it like it used to. I used to have it set at point. To me, that sounded more like a room, but it got lost with. So by giving it that little extra length, the reverb still gives that dimension with the rest of the mix sound happening now. On the side stick, since I'm using quite a bit of that on the side stick, reverb, so things just don't get too washy. I just wanted a little dimension on the snare stick and the toms.
Mm-hmm.
The bass, very little done to it. Added a tiny bit in the mid-range for some definition, tiny bit of real low end, because the bass on Greg's mix was very, very rich, and he used the analog console at Sunset, and those transformers just make things so nice and big. So had to fake it a little bit here. Little bit of compression, just to even it out a hair. They sounded really good to begin with, but it just seemed to sit in the mix better with a max. Oh, that's a lot more than I thought I had.
I'm where I'm supposed to be. New city, no doubts, 2 weeks to get off my.
Yeah, so since in the choruses, it's compressing quite a bit. Then when the dynamic level gets lower in the verses and the compressor's released, the bass is coming up, so it still keeps the low end really nice there. Piano just worked as a.
Where I go,
I'll play you. Let me just. Okay, so I'll just play you the band here, just to hear what the perspective is in the mix and the rhythm. Yeah, so that was really what I started with. Started first with the guitar, then drums and bass, and piano was in there most of the time too. So I mean, just built the rhythm, built the mix around that rhythm section. Vocal.
I rearrange them, add them up.
Little bit of EQ, just thickened it just a tiny bit here around 200. And then this is that, 800, usually 600 to 1K. That area there is always, it always, you almost always end up cutting down the vocal. It's sort of a honky kind of area, and just seems to, at least in close mic situations, the vocal seems like that always needs a little work in there. And this dynamic equalizer really helped because I didn't have to cut it too much, and
when I need to know that
it just backs off a little when I need to. This at 8K here, that's part of the de-essing.
And I see my lucky number everywhere I go, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Now there's a little delay, so you see that acting, not quite in time with what you're hearing, but that's doing some. And then I'm using a Mac DSP de-esser after that. Now, as far as reverb on the vocal, I wanted. Greg had a nice, rich reverb on it, probably a plate or maybe one of the Sunset's live chambers. I'm not sure. I used
zip codes, birthdays, and airplane rows. I can never pass them by.
So that's the EMT 140 from Universal Audio. Really nice simulation of that plate. Use it a lot on vocals. I've used it on guitars on this, on the electric guitars, which we'll get to. Also, I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle that the sibilants and the consonants have a fairly
zip codes, birthdays, and airplane rows. I can never pass them by. Zip code.
I'll accentuate it so you can really hear what it is.
Zip codes, birthdays, and airplane rows. I can never pass them by.
So that just smooths the sibilants and sort of gives a little dimension on the consonants. And I do this quite often, using 2 or more reverbs on vocals. Also sometimes delays, but I didn't think the delay was really appropriate for this song. I didn't want it to sound too processed.
Zip codes, birthdays, and airplane rows. I can never pass them by. I rearrange them, add them up, multiply till I find luck. Anything to call it a sign.
As I said, I used 2016 from the Altiverb. The stereo room set fairly short and bright, just to get that. And that, I really like that in combination with that EMT plate from UAD. Background vocals, again, just sibilant.
And I see. I see my lucky number everywhere I go, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be.
That's just also a 2016, a little longer. wanted the reverb sort of bright and airy on the background vocals, and because they are bright and airy sounding. And as far as their positioning, the two unisons, I panned wide since her vocals right in the middle, gives a nice sound stage there, and then panned the harmonies in a little bit, like 70, 60, 50, just so it doesn't sound like a discrete left right when the backgrounds are seen. More of a soundstage all across. Bridge backgrounds were already comped, so that's what.
I'm a little lost, but I've got something that I can count on.
In the bridge, there was a lot going on in this region, around 200. So I'm using dynamic EQ to just keep some clarity, to keep a lot of clarity in the vocals. See what else? There's these instruments here, which I'm just calling the group orchestra.
Maybe I'm
Now, the two tracks that are really the pads, which is this keys track and this low brass track, and they're both mono tracks. I wanted to get them wide out, in the outer edges of the mix. So I used just a real simple trick of using a stereo delay and having one channel not delayed, the other one short delay. Here is 23 milliseconds, and then just the opposite on this one. So so these two tracks are really become.
That's really cool. Mick, can we hear those with those delays bypassed and then with them on again?
Good idea. It's the Clorox is taking effect. Sorry.
That's really cool. That's it's kind of using like the Haas effect, right?
Yeah, because they're going to image. They'll image a little bit by the side with no delay, and the side with delay, of course, will widen it, and it'll bring the image over a little bit, but it brings it over, making it wide rather than panning it over.
Awesome. I love that reverb too.
That is what I think. That's They just came out with this 2016. This 2016 program on here, so I've been using it on a lot of stuff. Testing it out.
That's awesome.
Oh no, actually, this is from UAD again, who makes very, very nice. The Lexicon 480 large hall.
Awesome.
Okay, now there are a group of electric guitars that plays. So I just wanted that to be a spatial thing in there. Also, I used a pretty much no EQ or anything, but I used the UAD EMT 140 again on these. Now, also, I don't know if I'm sort of talking to everybody out here now that I don't know if you've seen my other videos for Puremix where I show how I set up a mix to make stems and do the mix at the same time. This is the way this mix is set up. Notice The drums are a pair of buses. The bass is a bus. All that orchestral instruments are through a separate stereo bus. Acoustic guitars are separate. Electric guitars are separate. Backgrounds and leads. So it's coming out. The mix is coming out on 8 stems, and goes through 8 auxes. And so these are the groups that make up the mix. And then also, if I needed to print stems on this mix, I just print those 8 buses. I don't know if you could see too much here. This is an Avid S6. And one of the nice things about this and you can also do this with the S3, and I think even the S1 now, is you can group tracks to VCAs, and then when you attention the VCA, it spills all the tracks. What I have here in this section of the console are the 8 subgroups, which are drums, bass, piano, orchestra, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, backgrounds, and lead vocals. Then the submaster, which controls all these. Then the master, which is an aux, the mix. And then I have the vocal tracks separately over here. I have the lead vocal, I have the submix of the backgrounds, and then the bridge backgrounds. These two sum into the background channel. Over here, now this you're not going to be able to see, is I have VCAs. I have this split up. Aside from these aux inputs, I have this group to VCAs. There's a VCA for drums and bass, keys and acoustic guitars, electric guitars, and vocals. And they're over here on the console out of sight. But if you can see these faders, if I attention the VCA for drums and bass, I have the drums and bass here, or any section. So I really don't have to move out of the sweet spot for this.
Right. And you can get exactly what you need right in front of you very quickly.
I can work within these groups or just control the whole groups. And I'm just gotten used to mixing like that, and I really enjoy doing it. It works really well for me. And plus, making stems, it's usually an incredible pain in the ass if you have to do them separately. You can do them in one pack. That's nice.
Are you still printing your stems on audio tracks, or are you doing commits on those, or?
I'm printing them on audio tracks. I haven't gotten to the stereo bus processing yet, and that's why I do print them on audio, because I, depending on what song it is, depending on the project, I'll use different processing on the stereo bus. Sometimes you can't see there's a rack there with a manly, massive, passive, and area view. And there's something I've really been using like for the past year that I really like, and I'm going out MADI from the DAD, which is pretty much the same as the Avid Matrix, and going into this Antelope converter. And what I like about this is they do a great simulation of the Lang PEQ2. And of course, you can save it, it's recallable. And I like what they did with the SSL EQ, so I'm using that on the bus here. I'll take that in and out and show you.
Awesome.
Look at the time, I see my lucky number everywhere I go, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road, always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Mick, I think Audio Movers is getting a little angry with us.
So it's fairly subtle, but what I'm doing is mixing in a tiny bit of mid-range for presence, about 1.5 dB, 2 dB, around 2. It all depends on the song and music, where I EQ there. And then I do this pretty commonly, about 7, 8K, a little bit of a shelf. And then I take the Lang and boost 15K. This equalizer, the real analog one, and this simulation of it actually have a very, very nice character up here at 12 and 15. So I'll show you a little bit of how that's. I don't know how much you'll be able to hear this over online, but
Cool.
Look at the time, I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
So that puts a real nice air on the top to me. Can you hear that?
Yeah, it makes the hi-hat just come to life there.
Yeah, and it puts
Very nice.
air on the.
Yeah, and the verbs too. It feels great.
Yeah, so I use that a lot. And also this equalizer has really nice, if you want to get really rich low end, the 40 hertz boost is really nice too. And the low end on Greg's original mix was incredible. I think a lot of that is, the transformers in that console he mixed on, but you can simulate it a little bit with this plug-in anyways.
I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where
That's great. Even down, down even in the 30 range, is just kind of pulling that kick drum, the foundation of that up. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's very broad EQ, and I actually haven't measured what the curve does. That would be interesting, but nothing else I've used sounds quite like that. I got to see really what's being done in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more time, the signal flow for that. So you were going out.
Yeah, I'm going out of the insert in the master bus to this. I'm not doing any EQ with this. Sometimes I do. This is really nice for surgical stuff if you have a really sharp peak or something you want to deal with. Mainly what I'm using this for here, I'm not using the EQ, but I'm using this mono maker, which just it's a filter that monos the signals starting with below the frequencies you have set on this, so it just gradually below that frequency monos anything that's on the side. And used to be really useful for vinyl, where the cutting stylus would go vertical if there was low ends on the out on the side. But the reason I use it now is because if you want the low end to really punch, now both speakers are moving the same. You're not getting one woofer over there on the low end, something over there. So it just sort of gives you a little more headroom and a little more, little more solid low end. Stereo with control, I think puts part. I'm not sure what the algorithm is or anything. It just widens the mix. Sounds like it's doing something with phase, but if you use a slight amount of it, it just really does a nice thing. I can, I'll put it back to 100, which is actually no processing, and then I'll widen it out and show you what it does.
I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed.
So see what that does. So I just use a little bit of it. It just adds a nice little dimension. It's also I'm also processing it in MS mode rather than left right. Sometimes it's funny because sometimes they sound a little different. Sometimes one works better than the other.
I see my lucky number everywhere I go. And I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. Swear it follows me down every road. Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where.
Yeah, this song, I like the way the MS mode works, and it's MS which is processing the center and the sides separately, but it sounds like more is going on in this plugin than that, because it doesn't sound like it's like it's simulated with MS. It sounds like it's who knows what they're doing, but it's works very nicely. I'm an old analog guy, so I don't quite know what's going on in some of these algorithms, and no one really tells you either. And maybe one of these some of this stuff. More now, I'm just sort of that, hey, sounds good, I'll use it.
Right.
Anyways, I'm using a slight amount of compression, UAD, Fairchild 6.
Always shows up just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, just to control the dynamics a little bit. It actually sounds a little better if I take it out, but you know, need to really if it's for commercial mixes, really need to restrict the dynamics a little bit. And this is a nice smooth compressor, so it really works well for a song like this. Then I use the Pro L2 limiter, and in this case I'm doing this to use just enough limiting to get it in the recommended average level range for like Spotify, iTunes, which they're saying, you know, I need like -12, -14.
Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got some that I think supposed to be, and I'm not looking. It's right I'm supposed to be.
So it's taking about 2 or 3 dB limiting on the transients to get that average level where it is. If we were to have the peaks up to zero, up to digital 0, and not limiting at all, then the average level would be down quite a bit. So I just want to keep that within a reasonable range. In this case, also, when I got it into that range, into that average range, there was a little too much limiting, and you could hear it. So what I did is I put on the drum bus.
Just when I need to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe
See, that limiter just is catching the higher peaks of the drums. So you see sometimes that'll hit 3 or 4 dB during an accented hit, and so by doing that, this limiter is limiting less, and it's not putting holes in the whole song if it has to like it would if it had to limit too much.
Awesome.
That's pretty much what I'm doing there. Let's see, anything else here? Oh yeah, in the bridge, I have on the acoustic guitar track, because, well, let's go through. I have automated EQ on it there. So let's see what happens when we get to the.
supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be.
So all those pad tracks come in. So on the acoustic guitar.
Supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm supposed to be. I know I'm where I'm supposed to be.
So I've got this curve on the acoustic guitar on top of the other EQ, because when it hits the bridge, excuse me, I was just getting too much in that range, 150 to 200 range. So
Supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be.
sorry, I gave you the wrong.
Supposed to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got something that I'm where I'm supposed
Put everything back in.
to be. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got something that I
So I just wanted to clear that area out a little and still have the acoustic guitar pretty audible. And you see when I take the EQ out, it gets a little muddy on the low end. So I just take more low end out of the guitar there. Other than that, this mix is real straight ahead.
Yeah, very cool. I love all of the different reverbs that you're using to kind of give all of this different depth and everything. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to not necessarily just using the same verb patch on everything, but splitting things up like this?
Yeah, two reasons. One is because I like to have different space and different instruments and just try to, and vocals, and just try to get it to where it sounds like it's in one environment, but there's no real collisions. Like the reverbs don't, if something needs a rich reverb or with some low end and something needs a brighter one, where they don't, where if I use, just use one reverb, that it might work great on something and not on something else. So I usually just set up the reverb to what the purpose is, what the instrument is. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is, since I'm mixing to stems, the reverbs have to come back to their proper stems, even if they're set the same. They're not set the same because I did want them different. But sometimes you'll see in my mixes, I'll have three reverbs doing the exact same thing, only for the reason that they're just assigned back to their own stems.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
yeah,
And then
case,
when you print it, it's exactly, imparted on the stem. Yeah.
And to your question before about do I print to audio tracks or bounce it, I print to audio tracks, and that's because I'm usually going through something outboard on the stereo bus, and I never put the master dynamics on the stems because it would change as they'd react differently and it would change the balance. But I always put bus EQ on the stems. So since I'm going to the outside world here, and what I would do is I would just in this case in the Antelope device, I would just I would just put the same processing, just copy them to all the 16 channels, 8 pairs, and then then I would just stick that in every aux. So
awesome.
So I'd have the master bus EQ would be on every stem. But the thing is, you can only do that real time when you go out of Pro Tools. So I can't do a high speed offline bounce. I guess I could put them in there and do an offline bounce, but since in my template I have the stem tracks all set up at the bottom, I just have to open them and activate them.
Right. Which is really, really fun about your template. And Mick's template is available on the site, so you guys can download it and check it out. But he's got all of this routing already set up for it, which is really cool.
Yeah, there's 16 subs. I'm using eight on this. The groups for the stems. There's 16 stereo pairs for the stems. And there's 24 send and returns for reverb. So it's just the channel setup. I don't have any plugins in there in my template, so I just usually put them in at the time. But I think I might change that a little and put my most commonly used ones in there.
Nice. Yeah.
There's a few I want to do because there's some reverbs I've been using a lot lately, so that are combinations of delays and reverbs, where one return would have a delay feeding back to itself, but it would be feeding back through a send to its own channel, so I could have EQ on that on the feedback loop of that, so I could make each successive repeat brighter or darker or do whatever.
Cool.
And then that to a reverb on another one. So there could be 2 or 3 auxes making up one effect.
I love that. That's such a cool trick.
Sent from one send, and now with Pro Tools having folder tracks, I could just have a folder track that has my own effects presets.
Yeah. So that was something I wanted to kind of get to a little bit. Is you're known for being a wizard on the S6, especially internally here at Puremix. I was wondering if you're using track folders yet and how that integrates into your workflow with the S6.
I haven't used them yet with the S6. I've played with them, um, and they do work. And I think, you know, I mean, they're in the very first version of using them. Uh, the only problem with them with the S6 is when you open a folder on the control surface, it just opens to its right. Where
Mm-hmm.
if you're using VCAs as masters, you can set a spill zone where the VCAs will spill to. So, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see in the picture, you don't see faders 1 through 16. VCAs are there. I put returns there sometime, and all my work is on these 16 faders that are in the sweet spot. So when I
Mm-hmm.
attention a VCA, since I have these faders set as my spill zone, they always spill here. If
Right.
I had a folder track and opened it, it would just always open to its right. And I haven't talked to anybody about it yet, but it would be so great if you could put the folder track anywhere and have it open to the spill zone.
Right. Right. That'd be great.
And I'd use,
Yeah.
but I have them on the screen. That's, you know, and they're
Mm-hmm.
good for that. It's just, especially I think it's going to be good for effects that are a complex chain where I could just have one folder that has that whole that has everything that makes that effect up there.
I kind of want to go build one of those right now. That sounds really fun. Like the delay getting darker on each repeat thing and doing some crazy stuff like that would be fun.
Yeah, or brighter. It's yeah, use it different ways. It's sort of cool.
Yeah.
And then you can return as much delay as you want, and then feed a reverb, and so the delay is a little more diffuse. You know, going through
Mm.
reverb, balance
Mm-hmm.
into it. It works. It's really nice on guitars. I didn't do any of this on this song because I was just trying to keep it a little more natural in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I was wondering if we could hear the bridge one more time. 'Cause that section of the song is really fun. That's where, you know, all that the harp stuff and Greg's Mellotron tracks are coming in and all that.
I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've got some I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I'm not looking. It's right I'm supposed to be. I see my lucky number. I see my lucky number.
That's great. Yeah. It sounds wonderful.
Thanks. Oh, so one
Yeah.
more thing in the mix, that I wanted the drums a little more punchy in the choruses, and what I did is I have a pre-fader send, you know, parallel compression on the drums, pretty much. Separate drum mix going to this drum compression channel, and I'm using on this from Waves this CLA 76, the Chris Lord LG 1176, which for some reason just works so great on drums. Just shorten the release a little bit and lengthen the attack a little bit, lets the transient clamps down, and the release characteristic is so nice because it keeps the cymbals sustaining a little more, and but doesn't just squash the whole thing. The transients still are getting through pretty good. So I've got this.
And I know I'm
So this, and you can this I open up on the choruses and the bridge, and you can see as the song is building, I'm using more of this to keep the drums punchy. So let's go to the bridge here, and
supposed to be.
actually let me turn other stuff off so we can just hear the drums here.
Very cool.
So yeah, a little more energy in those parts. Last chorus, I used even more of it. And say, listen how the cymbal decay sound.
Very
It's
cool.
adding and also increasing the decay of bringing the end of the decay of the cymbals up a little bit. So it seems to work really nice in more intense parts of the song.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So I have a couple questions from the chat room. Do you want to do a little Q&A for a minute?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. I'm done. I don't want to talk anymore about the mix.
Nice. How are you? How's the Clorox feeling right now?
Oh, getting really high from it. It's really good. See what a brilliant person our president is. This is
It's
the best
awesome.
shit.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let me try to make you more.
Got an idea for my own products: THC and Clorox mixed together.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. There we go. Cool. So one question. Let's see. I'm messing with Zoom here, trying to make it look good. First question would be, hello, Mick. What is your thought on the notion of high-pass filtering each track, except maybe the kick and the bass, even around 30 or 20 hertz? So what's your approach to high-pass filtering?
I usually I use it if there's an amount of energy that's below where the fundamental of the instrument is.
Mm-hmm.
Like on this guitar was one below. I mean, the fundamental of the guitar is about somewhere around 80 hertz. So I've got this 12 dB per octave roll off here. Not a sharp cutoff because I didn't want it to to make the low end below the the low end from the body of the guitar, things like that. I didn't want to completely lose that, but I wanted to attenuate it. If I wanted to completely lose that, I would go to a much steeper slope, and it would just cut off below the fundamental. So I do it, but I do it gently. There's some cases. Let me find it on the hi-hat. This is a very common one. How much you can hear that online, but there's a lot of low end, probably mic popping and stuff, or just vibrations on the stand. See, none of that stuff is useful at all on a hi-hat, and it'll just it'll contribute to making the track muddy. So just get rid of it. So I don't high pass everything, but I definitely listen through everything to see what I want to high pass.
Yeah.
In some cases, in some cases, it's good to high pass certain instruments if even if some of their fundamentals, even if it's above some of the fundamental frequencies, because it may it may get muddy with the bass or the kick. You can see I did that with the acoustic guitar, but I usually use a fairly gentle roll off and try to keep anything important in the instrument in the mix.
Awesome, cool. There were some questions in the chat room, and I think that this is kind of a useful topic given the situation that everybody's in too. There was some chatter earlier about your use of like the ATC attack wall, and then also your speakers. A lot of people are working from home right now, so do you have any advice for people on that?
Well, the attack wall is it's a great way to set up a studio if you don't want permanent construction. Because see, I'm in my studio is a spare room, and we're renting our house, so obviously the landlord wouldn't want me to construct a whole studio in here. And the attack wall really controls this room very nicely acoustically. And when I do move, I can, it'll just take a couple days to get this whole thing out and set up somewhere else.
Right.
It's hard to see online because the cylinders are all black, and this is just a cheap webcam, and it's not going to pick up the kind of subtle gradations. But you can see there's 21 cylinders around the room in a semicircle from the mixing position forward. Then behind the monitors are on larger diameter cylinders that are at the right height for, I think they're 42 inches. They're the right height to put the monitors on. Then there's a couple on top of those. And those that the speakers are on are a larger diameter, and of course, so they'll absorb lower frequency. And then behind those, there's even a larger one in the corner, acting as a corner bass trap.
Wow, awesome. Did it take you any time to get used to that room, or did you kind of feel right at home because of all of the attack wall stuff?
Yeah, it took a while. I mean, a small residential room, has limitations, no matter what you do acoustically to it. So, I mean, there was a lot of, once I got these set up where I liked them, where the stereo image was good, then I really had to do some surgical EQ on the low end to keep it pretty flat in here.
Awesome.
Okay.
Is that in line with your monitor path, or is that something that's on your master bus? Or?
Yeah, well, it's right in the crossovers for the speakers. There's 10 bands of parametric EQ on the input, and then also 7 bands for each driver, which we really don't mess with. That was when we built the system that was to flatten out the drivers and the crossover points. So and so it's the input EQ I use to tune the room.
Awesome. And we can kind of see one of them up there. These are your speakers, correct?
Yeah, we've been making these since about 2011. It's a 3-way system, tri-amped. The amplifiers are separate. I didn't want to get them so big with having the electronics in them. So they're about, you can see them, they're about 2 feet long, about 14 inches high, about 16, 17 inches deep. They're a sealed box, so which I like, because a sealed woofer below its resonance rolls off at 12 dB per octave, where a ported system will roll off at 24. So the low frequency roll off's shallower on this. The disadvantage being that since you don't have a port, there's no assistance for the speaker, so you need a proportionally larger speaker with a longer excursion to get the low end. So so we've got a 12-inch woofer that can move over an inch, and with about 1,000 watts behind it. So that takes care of that. And also transient response and damping of a sealed system. I prefer it. It seems that the low end is a little tighter.
Awesome. Very cool. You've done it all. So let's see, another question from the chat room. Mick, do you ever get feedback from the mastering engineer about your mixes? And if yes, what specific elements do they point out?
Every once in a while, I'll get something like, thought it was too much bottom or something. But for the most part, I don't get really much feedback back, and I get get it back, and if it's not too compressed, I'm happy with it. I don't get too much feedback from mastering. As a matter of fact, I don't want to say who or what, but I just did a project a few weeks ago, and they sent it for mastering, and I sent 2 mixes. I always send the mix that the client's approved, which, depending on the type of music and the intended audience for it, depends how loud and how compressed I was. This was extremely loud and extremely compressed. And then I make one with less limiter, less compression, give mastering engineers some room to work. And in this case, I get the master back, and this doesn't really sound different. So I put it up against the mix and flopped the phase, and guess what? It disappeared completely, except for a tiny bit of hiss from the dithering down to 16 bits.
Oh, no. So they sent you back your mix.
Back my mix, yeah.
Nice.
But I was happy with it. It was how it was how I thought it should sound. And
Mm-hmm.
the and usually some guys I really like what they really do with the mix with less limiting. I mean, they have different gear, different sensibilities than I do, and sometimes master improves what I have quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes the compression limiting they use or soft clipping or what I just hate. So it goes all over the place. There's a few
Right.
guys I really trust, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That was going to be my next question is if you have a guy that you always work with, or it sounds like a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the client likes to use their own mastering engineers they're used to, and so I mean that's always fine. Uh, had some work done before. Guy in France, Chab Mastering in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
who always does great, never overdoes compression or limiting, and EQ is always very musical. Really like Bernie Grunman here in town.
Mm-hmm.
As you like the old school things, that's always fine.
Awesome.
Had some work.
We have a guest coming in.
Chab Mastering in Paris.
So, Mick, you could stop your. Let's see. I'll stop your sharing, and then now I don't know if you can see us again.
Very musical. Really like Bernie
Awesome.
Grunman.
Greg, do you have headphones by chance?
Had some work.
We have a guest.
From all this feedback. Wait, I need
You need some more of your coronavirus shot.
I don't know if you saw last night. Trump said injecting disinfectants for the coronavirus.
So he's been filling up on it. Greg, thanks for joining us. This is awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh,
hi.
Manager's calling. No, you're not. Hi. Hi, Mick.
Hi. Can you hear me? Huh?
How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Can I hear this? Can I hear the mix? I guess I'm.
What you did. This was really fun to work on.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear what you've done with it. Is there any way I can hear it from top to bottom?
Yeah. Give me just a second.
Because your mix was so natural and honest and beautiful. And
well, I mean, I've been a fan of yours for so long. Don't even get me going. And I have to say, and I think I emailed you about this, but your mix template has completely changed everything about the way I'm mixing everything I'm doing. And I'm forcing myself to adhere to the structure of it and the organization of it, because naturally I am very sort of disorganized. And it's really hard for me to think in a more structured way, but it is just such a blessing to have the openness of really no mix bus, or your thing that you said, if sometimes you'll put EQ on the mix bus and then you'll take it off and put it on the various individual buses. And then to hit record one time and have the stems sound exactly like the mix, which I've never been able to do before, is amazing. And today it's more important than ever, really, because there's third-party companies that the labels hire, as you well know, to verify that the stems are accurate, that the stems are exactly the same sonic settings as are on the record. And if they think it doesn't sound the same, they will say so. And that delays me from getting paid as a record producer. They're always, finding new ways to delay paying people like us. Oh, yeah. And that's a big.
Yeah, and I always deliver the stems in a Pro Tools session with the with any final compressor or limiter on the whole mix. Since of course I can't put those on the individual stems and have the same balance. So I usually deliver stems with a single compressor and limiter on that. And I put the mix there and make sure they usually don't exactly cancel, but they're usually, you can't tell the difference by A/Bing them. So.
That's amazing. It's
awesome.
Really amazing. It's a real game changer for me. It also makes, for me, I know these are dangerous things to say, but it makes the sonics of mixing purely in the box just go huge. And I've always thought, when I listen to your work, and I know that Serban has a similar approach to Manny has a similar approach where they're really not putting anything on the mix bus at all, and it's all about what you're feeding into the final thing. All of the aforementioned people, the mixes just sound massive and deep and focused, but also huge. And I could never quite. I knew what was going on was different than how I was doing it, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I think this is it.
I don't know what those guys do. I mean, I don't know if they're secretive or not. I haven't seen too much, I haven't seen them talk about it very much, how they're doing it.
They don't, and I forced them to do it. I mean, Manny talks a bit about it. Serban's very shy, and he doesn't want to. He feels like if he got on camera, he'd make a fool of himself, which is totally inaccurate. He's brilliant, and
He does.
yeah. But anyway, I mean, but I've spoken to everybody about this stuff. It kind of was a big deal for me because I've been so mix bus reliant for years and years and years and years and years, and really advocating that. And
I still do.
It's not like that's broken or that's hurt my career, but I really am enjoying. Here's what happened. I'm mixing the film In the Heights, the new Lin-Manuel Miranda film, which is his original, Broadway musical. The music is amazing. Alex Lacamoire thankfully asked me to get on board and do it. So I'm mixing 18 songs, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but when you're mixing for film, you can't use a mix bus. They want to take my mix and put it into Atmos and put it into various versions of surround sound. So they said, give us 25 stereo stems, and here's what each stem should be. Percussion 1, percussion 2, percussion 3, percussion 4, Latin trumpets, Latin bones, Latin sax, orchestral winds. Okay, it just went on. It was amazing, and that also was hard for my disorganized brain to just acclimate to. I really took a couple of days, and I was talking to friends like Alan Meyerson, who was unbelievably helpful, and Paul Massey, who mixes for film all the time. Both those guys are as good as it gets mixing for film, mixing for anything really. And they just kind of talked me off the ledge and said, it's fine, like you can just. And so between talking to them and really hunkering down, Mick, on your Puremix video of your mix template, and I watched it 4 or 5 times, because the first time I couldn't absorb what you were saying, just because I'm really dumb until I know what it is, and then once I know it, it's fine. But getting over that precipice is really sort of a Herculean accomplishment for me. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but it's exciting for me. So In the Heights, I'm doing these mixes, and I'm just trying to make it sound right. And I kind of felt like I was making dinner with one hand only, not being able to use a mix bus. And I sent them in to Alex Lacamoire and to the people on the film, and they were incredibly responsive and said, these sound amazing. And I thought, okay, well, they're either being really nice or maybe something's happening I'm not aware of. So I started listening to my car, and there definitely was like another thing going on, just this life where everything had its own footprint in a way that it didn't when it was all kind of funneling through. I like to put a bunch of stuff on the mix bus with everything not really doing very much. But the challenge of and then taking your idea of like, let's audition something on the mix bus, and if it's cool, take it off and then go put it on whatever individual buses make sense. It's really kind of like I wake up excited to mix more than ever because of your approach. How long have you been doing it that way?
When did I start this way? It was I think probably 2014, 15, around then.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of when I got the S6, and it came about by it's a 32 fader surface, and my sweet spot is on these 16 faders here. So I just started setting it up that way with VCAs to spill, and then the auxes, the auxes that make the stems right in front of me, and then so it's usually VCAs over there so I can spill them, and then the aux is here with a VCA submaster, master fader, and then any space left for the right are things I want to just have at my fingertips the whole time. Like in this case, the lead vocal, the bridge backgrounds, and then another aux that has all the backgrounds comp to it. And sometimes I'll put more stuff. Sometimes I'll do multiple layouts. So I just usually set it up that I have what I need in front of me, on however many layouts I need.
Sure. And have you always been that sort of organized and practical?
No, no, I've tried to be, but no. I mean, there was a few years of floundering around with Pro Tools, and not really finding the best way to use it. When I used to work a lot in studios and analog consoles, I usually didn't bust things or make subgroups. Nobody really wanted stems then. It was just printing, mix, TV mix. And so I just have everything through, through the main stereo bus, sometimes parallel compression to it from something. But, this just all came about in the last few years. And it makes it so easy to set up a mix because I could just set, I could set these up anywhere, so like on a laptop and make the VCAs. Then all I do is just go into the S6 and just tell what channels to be on what faders, and it's ready. So
it's beautiful. And of course, because I'm kind of excessive, so I set up my own version of this template. Yeah. And I have a bunch of processing on each bus, and I don't always use it, but it's there, it's ready to go. And I'll start with a fair amount of processing on each bus and just sending the right things to the right buses. I'm already kind of 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah, that's something I should try, because I usually start with nothing and listen to the tracks, and then and then use a little processing on each track to just make it, like in this one I started with acoustic guitar, and then listening to it with the bass, and I ended up taking some bottom off of that. So I do a little processing on the channels first, and then listen to it and find sort of a commonality between all the sounds, and then take care of that with EQ on the bus, on the stereo, on the final bus.
Right.
So I'm tweaking that through the whole process, really. But yeah, I've always had stuff on the stereo bus, and I guess it's just carry over from the analog days where I used to.
Right. I mean, it's so much fun to do that, but then, once I realized I could take advantage of something that the Pro Tools has had forever, where you can have a bunch of the same plugin and multiple instantiations on many different subgroups, and then when you modify the group to say anything I do to the plugin, I want it to do to all of it. That's the same, like the excitement as tweaking the mix bus, but I still have nothing on the mix bus.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I'm saying. It's probably a huge eye roll to you, but for me, it's really like I've discovered, some amazing magic wand.
Yeah, I processed some on the buses. I mean, not that much on this mix, but and there's quite a bit on the stereo bus. I mean, there's did you see before when I was showing what the stereo bus was?
I missed it. I need to go back and watch the entire video. I just joined about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 15 minutes ago.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So Greg, I just emailed you the Audio Movers link, so we could play that, and the audience will hear it, and you'll hear it.
So do I click on the link?
Yeah. Yep. Just inside of there, and then it's going to ask you to connect to it as well, I believe. So once you open the link, I think you have to push one more button, and then you're good.
Okay.
Cool.
And I think I'm going to take the compressor off the bus because I think I liked it better.
This says I'm connected.
Oh, cool. Okay.
If you hear it.
I'm not hearing anything.
I don't think he's playing.
Only getting getting it?
No. So what I'm looking at, it's next to status, there's a green thing that says connected, past tense connected. And then to the right of that, it says streaming channel 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't see the meters moving when you hit play there?
No.
Let me just double check the link here. So sorry, everybody, you're going to see my browser for a second.
But
Hold on.
don't worry about me. I can, I'm going to watch this entire thing later. I don't want to waste everyone's time.
Let's see. I think it's going to be fairly quick here. Is it better if I email it to you or text you?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Hold on one second here. And
While you're doing that, is there any other questions I should answer?
yeah. Let me pull one up here. I'm just going to send this email to Greg real quick. And let's see. So, Mick, I'd love to hear some of your comments on what it was like to work on Chuck Mangione records back in the day when those records were done off the floor. And what has changed in your approach since then? And do you still use some techniques from back then?
Well, when everything was off the floor on the Chuck Mangione records, those were the early ones, and that was how I started. This is interesting. So I'm assuming you're talking about Chase the Clouds Away and Bella Via, which were in 1975 and 76. Those were the ones that were completely live in the studio. It was, I mean, that was just totally flying by the seat of my pants and relying on great assistants and other engineers. It was, I used to do sound on the road for Chuck Mangione. And then, I had a studio back in Rochester, New York, where I'm from, where engineered demos and stuff. And he goes, and he said, well, I've just signed with A&M and they'll let me use wherever I want. Do you want to come out? He goes, tell me the truth. Do you think you can do this? Do you want to come out and engineer this album, 45 pieces live in the studio? And I thought, there's no way I can do this, but I'm not going to say no,
Mm-hmm.
So it was just setting everything up in Studio A at A&M. Pretty much the way a lot of the live, little modification of what the live, about what the live orchestra setup was. The studio was quite a bit different then because where those booths, the studio was bigger. Where the booths are now, that was a little wider, and I think they've taken some. I know they made one of the mix rooms into a booth, but it was just a big rectangular room. So setting up the long way is the rhythm section along the which would be the right side wall, which is the long wall as you're looking out of the control room. Rhythm section there, brass to the right of them, woodwinds to the right of them, string section to the left. So it was a semicircle, just an orchestra setup. And then tried to gobo off what we need, even though there's still tremendous amounts of leakage. And just went from there. And any help I needed, Tommy Vaccari was working there at the time doing, I don't know if I think it's still one of the best sounding records ever, that Gino Vanelli album. He was doing that. He was just finishing that at the time.
Awesome.
But this is back in 75. I think the Captain and Tennille were in Studio D working on their hit, and it was a great time. And a lot of the people at A&M were just very, very helpful at the time, and it was I learned a lot. Just started really from the perspective how I used to mix the show live, but using picking better microphones, having help pick what microphones using, and then just did it to 24 tracks. I mean, there was some pre-mixing into it, and that was it.
Oh, that's awesome. Very
Mick,
cool.
were you involved in that Live at the Hollywood Bowl, the live album, the second live album?
Yeah. We did that with I think was it Record Plant Truck or Hyder Truck. And it was weird what happened there. It was like over 100 degrees that day, and the sun was like beating on the side of this truck and thermally tripped the circuit breaker during the rehearsal. So they turned the thing back on after the rehearsal, right? Because actually we had all the balances, we just barely got it. I wish I had a little more time, but so the whole thing went down. Then when they turned it on again, one of the power supplies in the API blew out. So and the show was just coming up, and so completely lost the brass section. We had to go into Ocean Way, which I think was United at that time, and overdub all the brass.
Wow.
Wow. That's
I was
crazy.
obsessed with that. Was it a double album? I was obsessed with it. I used to come home from school and just sit down in front of my parents' vinyl record player and just listen to all of it. James Bradley Jr. and Grant Geisman. And it just killed me, blew me away. There's an energy that got captured. That's it. How stressful, though, that stuff kept blowing up because of the heat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was just one blow up, but then when it came back on was when the supply went.
Crazy. Let's see. So Greg, did that link load up for you?
It did, yeah. Look, I don't want to take over Mick's thing here. This is about. I don't want to get in the way here. I'm already too in the way. Just you can take me off, but I'll listen to this. I look forward to listening to it and hearing your take on it.
I'll play it if you have it. If it comes this time, let's works. If not, we'll do it.
Let's try. Go ahead.
No luck.
Nothing.
Bummer.
Yeah, no sound, no meters, nothing. All right. Well, I'm a huge fan. It's really nice to meet you this way. We actually did meet when I used to be a session musician in the 90s. I was playing a shaker overdub for Rick Knowles at Conway, and I think you were in the middle of a mix for him on something.
Oh yeah, the Stevie Nicks, right?
I can't remember. I don't remember what it was, but I remember quickly saying hi to you and just going, "Oh my God, that's Mick Guzauski!" I'm like trying to. You might actually have even recorded the shaker. Well, I think I was in a little vocal ISO booth in the mix room there. Anyway, I'll get out of your way. Thank you.
It's awesome. Good to see you, Greg.
And I think I have your email from when we just said hi, so I'll just print an MP4 of this and send it.
That would be great. That'd be great. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you soon.
Well, cool. Mick, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Hey, I'm here. I'm quarantined.
You're stuck. You do still have your.
Yeah.
It's time for a refresh. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Don't try that at home, guys. Just to be sure. Okay, so I like this question a lot. Hi, Mick. How's your mixing day? Do you prefer to mix early in the morning or at night? And how many stops do you do for your ears? Can you give us some advice regarding your routine?
Okay. I don't know if it would be advice because I don't know if it would work for everybody, but I'm not an early riser at all. So I like to get up, just hang out for a while. And then I usually start around 1. Work pretty solid till about 4 or 5, take a break, come back. And then if I'm busy, I'll come back and work late, if something has to be finished up. But if the schedule's light, I'll stop like it's 6 or 7 and go and work on it the next day, which I really like doing because I, always hear something the next day that I probably wouldn't hear or do correctly the first night I'm doing it. So I do it pretty leisurely now. And that's what I really like about working at home and having my own studios because I can take time, I can spread the mixes out, not worry about costing the client money booking studio time. So I guess everybody's doing that now too.
Right. Awesome. And about how long do you normally spend on a mix? And obviously it's gonna, let's say like one that's kind of similar like this, and then maybe one that's like double what this is.
Okay, this I started at about 2 o'clock. I put the tracks, you sent me just the WAV files, so I put them in a Pro Tools session the night before and just organized it, set everything up to the template. And then I started about probably 1:45 or 2, and it's done finished about 5:30 on this one.
Nice.
I mean, this was a fairly quick one because it was very, very well recorded and not real complex. So it's sometimes I'll struggle with something for days, a couple days. So it's hard to say. And it isn't always a mix with tons of tracks that takes a long time. There's really good professional productions like this that fall together really nice, and most of the time is spent just on little details. And then there's stuff that maybe doesn't have that many tracks, but just doesn't want to work. So those are the two extremes. And sometimes, I mean, I've gotten in a lot of really good productions that have well over 100 tracks that don't take all that long. I mean, obviously they take a lot longer than this. They take a full day or more, but all the time is spent achieving something. It's not fixing stuff.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. And was the S6 like, was that kind of a big help for you when, dealing with sessions that come in that are, 190 tracks or something like that? Does that?
Yeah, because everything's set up on VCAs. I usually stay on, there's 16 faders that I work on. There's usually 8, somewhere around 8 VCAs down there that spill here. And then down at the far end, I sometimes, if I need to automate a return or an effect, I'll have it on those down at the far end of the console. So with doing it that way, I mean, any size session, I could just stay in the sweet spot.
Right. That's great.
Not like those input Neves where you have to take a cab from one end to the other,
like swinging down. Yeah. Cool. Let's see. So, okay. So this one will be interesting too, because we can approach it from a recording aspect as well. And he says, "Dear Mick, thanks so much to give us the chance to learn from your great background. Can you tell us how is your approach to mixing vocals and your vocal chain?"
Okay. Depending on the song, the approach is different. Something that's more rock, the vocal will be more compressed and back in the track. Something like this, the vocal is really up front and key to it. There's not a lot of processing on the vocal because it's recorded very well. Little EQ. I always use this Pro Q3 because I can do dynamic EQ. And sometimes if I need more than this can do, I'll use their Pro MD, the multiband compressor. So I usually do frequency dependent dynamic processing, and then and then a wideband compression. But I'm not doing that on this vocal because it's very well controlled. Then de-esser. I almost always use a de-esser because pretty much any vocal is going to have a lot of sibilance. So
could you hit screen share again? Sorry, so that they can see those de-essers and stuff.
Got it?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, lost my cursor. It's on the other screen there. Okay. So in this case, use the FabFilter Pro Q3. I always use that because I do a lot of dynamic EQ on vocals. In this case, very little because it was just recorded very well, sounded very well. So this is a very common thing, taking a little out in the mid-range is that, in that area, it's usually happening in here between 600 and 1K, you get that kind of effect. And so that I'm cutting back a little bit and then a little more dynamically. And then this is actually in the center of the sibilance range. This is acting like a de-esser. And this is just a little boost up around 15K. Another de-esser after it to control the sibilance. And usually you'll find a lot more in my vocal chain, like compressors, sometimes 2 compressors, one gentle and slow, another one faster. But that just wasn't needed at all. Vocal was sung very well and very well under control. And also one thing I do all the time is I spend quite a while with faders, going for every, the dynamics and words that are important. See, I don't usually do that with the mouse. That's why I need a console. I'm lost without faders. Very old school. So a lot of times in vocals, I spend just riding the levels.
And how early in the mix do you do that?
I don't ride the levels early in the mix. I try to get the EQ compression with the sound early on. I usually do uh, rhythm section first. This case started with the guitar because it starts the song, was the main instrument there. So I started with the guitar, um, then bass, drums, and piano. Got that. Then worked on then got the vocal sounding right in there, and then just started tweaking, putting the other instruments in, and then just sort of going massaging everything, tweaking back and forth. It's not like putting something in, getting it set, and that's it. It's everything's very interactive between each other in a mix.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
anyways, in this case, we went through this before. I'm using two reverbs. One is a short, bright reverb that sort of just diffuses the consonants, gives a little life up there, and the other one is a longer, darker reverb to give some space. So, a lot of times I'll use a delay. Just wasn't appropriate for this song. I pretty much like to just do what let the music dictate how how I have to treat the vocal or treat anything. It's always the song.
Mm.
Uh,
That's a huge star point right there, that it's always a song.
Yeah. In this case, here's something I had to do. There's a 1S that's really loud in here. So I just cut it, and the de-esser wasn't enough. And it was just one in the song. So I just cut it and did clip gain on it. And then the only other thing I had to do to lead vocal, the real open section right after the bridge, there were some mouth noises. So just duplicated the playlist, cut out where the problem was, and I used the Isotope RX7 mouth declick. The Audio Suite plugin offline worked perfectly. So that
Awesome.
plugin I would recommend to every mixer. Our Isotope RX7, you can fix stuff that is unbelievably. I mean, this was an easy one, but just a little mouth noise. But I mean, you can fix clicks in the middle of notes. You can fix. If you don't have the RX7, get it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and it's those little things that like can distract and pull you right out of a mix and all that stuff, even a little subconsciously and all that.
This was all in a really, really quiet spot, and
Yeah, cool. That's great. How about for recording vocals? Do you have a chain that you like to use, or?
I usually use, well, the mic depends on the singer. I like what I've used. I like I always find a U47 on male vocals usually works really good. 67s I'll use a lot on male or female vocals. Tele 251s. I like the Sony C800G, especially for pop stuff. It's just a very clear, precise sounding mic. I usually use, more often than not, I usually use a Neve 1073 or 1084 31102, one of the Class A old Neve modules, and then an LA2A. There's a little general compression, then right to Pro Tools from that.
Awesome. We have a question from Matt who says, "Hi Mick, what would be your best tip to get great separation with drums, especially overheads and toms, with the rest of the instrument?"
Let me think about that one for a second, then, because it's that's so much dependent on how the drummer's playing. How much overheads are in the toms and in the snare, how much hi-hats in the snare is it's probably more from the balance that the drummer's played and then how you record it. Especially if I'm going to use some reverb on it and in mixing, I'll gate. Here's the side stick is gated because I didn't want the hi-hat hitting the reverb. But see, this is played in such good balance that there's really no problems. Just as a matter of course, on the toms, I just usually go through with tab to transient and then just extend it out a little bit and fade it. So the toms are cut. I'm not. I don't have the leakage that's on the tom tracks to worry about. But see, if you see in this case, there's really not much. Some cases it's really bad. You really have to do some surgery. But I'd say it's more how it's played than anything.
Yeah. So starts with the great drummer and all that. And, yeah. Awesome. Bob in the chat also said that he noticed that there wasn't any big processing other than the parallel and the reverb on the drums as well.
Right, that's all there is. It's, I mean, again, it's mixing. It's mixing for the song and the music. I mean, in some cases, I have a lot more processing and a lot more going on. If we need that kind of drum sound, but this, but whatever processing I had to do on this kit was to maybe make it a little bigger or but keep it natural and in context with the music. So I didn't do too much to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much
that's awesome.
So much of mixing is what you don't do. Too.
Right.
It's just it's important to listen to the tracks, listen to the song, listen to how everything sounds before you do it. Listen to the rough mix, put the tracks up, feel what's going on in the song, how it's played, how what it's about, and then start working towards that rather than just going at it from the top.
Right. Awesome. And to that end, when you get something with a rough mix, or in this case with Greg's mix, what are some of the things that you're listening for to try and inform you of where you're going to take it?
First, the balance, because how the song, the rough mix, which I mean, and it wasn't a rough mix; it was a real mix, and it was really nice. But it was, I try if I like, if the rough mix sounds good to me, I'd say, okay, this is their intention of the song, and I try to work from something very close to that, and then just maybe add a few little colors, mixing to it, but not. I don't try to drastically change things unless somebody says, "Oh, don't worry about the rough mix. This is really rough. Just go for it." Sometimes I get that, but more often than not, it's just sort of improving the rough a little bit.
Awesome. Well, what do you think? One more question? Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's see. Let me just change our view here. Let's go side by side. Hold on. Sorry, I'm fixing Zoom a little bit. Boom. Okay, cool. So this person has a question that you probably get quite a bit, but it's a great one. So we're going to ask it again. So, still can't believe the incredibly good work you did on the Random Access Memory album from Daft Punk. It's one of the best albums of the decade. Can you elaborate a bit on your approach in shaping the overall sound of this incredible album? Thanks so much.
So that one, it's sort of different for me because I got to record most of that too. So so it was really great working with the band and in the studio. Basically I recorded all the basic tracks on that album, all the live tracks. The approach was they wanted to primarily get a tight 70s kind of disco sound, sort of dead. And we were in a pretty live room. It was Conway Studio C. So, and I was thinking about really making that work for the project because there was songs in the project that we wanted, wanted the option of usually having that really tight drum sound and then the option of having room and ambience. So we a go-boat off the drums with a blanket over the go-boat made it really dead in there for the close mics, but it was open on one side. Mics were angled back a little bit into the dead area. And then had room mics. I think there was a pair of 67s or 87s out in the room, so we always had that. So we had we could really go anywhere with the drum sound on that, and it was just basically just try to do a natural sounding recording. There was multiple mics on the drums rather than I try to use positioning and different types of mics rather than doing a lot of EQ from the beginning. And then, I worked on some of the overdubs, some of the vocal recording. I did some of the orchestra recording over at Capitol, which was a fun day. Most of the electronic instruments they did back in France in their studio. And a lot of the guest artists were done in their own studios. So I wasn't involved in a lot of that. But at least when the project came back to mix, it sounded very familiar to me. So it was like, okay, yeah, they've edited this, they've embellished this, but mixing it wasn't really difficult because already knew how the track sounded.
Right. Yeah. And going into that record, did you guys have a lot of discussions about the sounds that you were going to be trying to get? And
oh yeah, they played me a lot of records from different eras, what they liked and didn't like about it, and we had meetings about that. And it was just mainly they were mainly the idea was a modern high fidelity record, but with with kind of the balance and sonic sensibilities of some of the really great 70s records.
Mm-hmm.
The Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Then they played me some disco records, some of Giorgio's stuff, and to really get an idea of where they were at on it. And,
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys, there was a very, very specific intent as you went into it.
Yeah. And they were very. Tomas is seems like a real perfectionist and real audiophile. So there was no. He didn't mind experimenting. Didn't mind trying different gear. So we really, really had a chance to tune everything in right from the beginning on that project and really get the sounds we wanted.
Awesome. Yeah. So after that recording, you said they went back, they were doing a bunch of stuff in France and then flying you new electronic stuff?
It was a few different, we did a few different tracking sessions. A few, and then we went back and did some more, and it was back and forth, the basic tracks, then some overdubs, then they went back to France, and then came back, we did the orchestra, did some more stuff here, then they went back there, and the album took years to make, but it was, I wasn't involved the whole time. The most time-consuming things were, I think them doing their synths and the vocoder. They were very, very, very precise. Very, that's what I'm looking for. They were just very. The vocoder. I wasn't at those sessions, but like a lot of times they do it a note at a time, just get the thing to trigger perfectly. Wow. So they spent a lot of time on that. Lots of time editing. Doing that, and a lot of those songs are edited from several different songs that were started. It was started with just ideas and grooves, and then they pretty much made the songs from there.
Awesome. Yeah,
but that's great experience because it wasn't like hurry up because it's costing studio time or don't rent this. We had everything we wanted on that album. Nice. So it was got to play with all sorts of gear, all sorts of, playing with the room. It was a really nice experience. It was making a record the old way.
Right.
And the thing is they financed the whole project themselves, and they weren't signed till after it was done. So there was nobody looking over about budget or putting other ideas, and it was all them.
Yeah,
exactly what they wanted.
That's great. Yeah. So, how would that work then? Would you submit a list of gear that you wanted to have at the studio, or did you guys do rentals?
Yeah, in the beginning, in the beginning we did. Then they had Vintage King just deliver all sorts of stuff. Some we didn't even use, but there was just all sorts of stuff to play with. And some we did, some we didn't. Some we used in some spots, some in others.
Yeah. Anything that like sticks out from like in your memory from those sessions of like, oh, this was a cool piece of kit that I used?
Well, let me think what we're doing. I think um, it was pretty standard as far as the basic tracking was. Used API preamps and EQs for the kick and snare,
Mm-hmm.
which I've always liked. Overheads, I think we used Shep's mics, really, really nice, clean mics with through Neve 1073s on top. This is a while ago. We did it at Conway. They have a Neve 88R in there, and the first 24 channels have remoted mic pre's in the studio, so you don't have the problem of the mics going through a lot of cable capacitance. They're going right to the preamps, and line levels coming back. Preamps are remote controlled, so most of the tracking were done through that. So I mean, other than selecting mics and preamps and tracking, it was pretty straight ahead. In mixing, we got to play with a lot of stuff. There's I know in a lot of times we'd have that Chandler Zener compressor, which would do incredible things on drums, and usually just very subtly in there. And a lot of songs, none, like Get Lucky didn't have that, but some of the other things that was used as an effect. Let's see, what else can I tell you about that? It was on the bus. They had a couple of EQs out of a Neumann mastering console. Just had incredible sounding mid-range characteristics. So we had that. And then I've always liked, if I'm using an analog EQ, I've always liked the Avalon EQ on the bus. So we had an Avalon mastering EQ on the bus. Usually a little compression from the Neve 33609. No limiting. That's about it.
Nice. Was that was mixed all on a console?
Oh yeah. That was something I forgot to say, is that was all mixed on a console. Didn't use any plugins. They didn't want to use plugins. We used a few for de-essers and gates. Anything that needed that would work better with something with look ahead rather than an analog device. So any gates and any de-essers were in Pro Tools. But other than that, it was and some channels were pre-mixed because some of the sessions were big, and we had 68 channels, I think, on the console.
Right.
So it was pretty much mixed on the console. I had a little Euphonics Artist 8-fader control surface there, so I could have faders for pre-mixes that we were doing.
Right.
That were in.
Awesome. How was it? Do you still do a lot of mixes on consoles these days, or are you?
Haven't in a long time. No.
Yeah.
I just pretty much stay at home. I miss being in the studio, really. But I guess you could say it's a whole different vibe than it used to be. I used to love to be in the studio all the time in the 90s because everybody was in, and you'd meet people and exchange ideas and talk in the studios. Now so many people are working at home that there just isn't a social interaction anymore doing that. And even in the studios, it doesn't seem to be as much anymore.
Right.
So
yeah, like the story that Greg just told you. I mean, he was on that session, but that kind of stuff, like at Sunset, where you're going from one studio to the other, or everybody's sharing the same coffee machine. It's like you end up in the same spot. And
yeah, that was great being in a multi-room studio. I love that. I mean, you learn so much by watching other people's techniques and exchanging ideas. And
yeah, that's awesome.
It was a great time. But see, going from that to this this quarantine would be an awful shock. But now going from working at home to a quarantine doesn't really change stuff too much.
Yeah. All you really have to do now is just inject yourself with Clorox. Other than that, it's the same.
Right.
How long were the mix sessions for that record? Did it take a while to mix it?
All summer, and the reason for that is they didn't want to do any recalls. so we'd set up a mix, do the mix. Some mixes didn't take that long at all, but a lot of them they would decide to they'd listen and then they would decide to work on some edits or some parts. They had a Pro Tools system in the ISO booth in the studio, and I was feeding them the monitors from the control room in there. So they'd be working on stuff to feed me while I was mixing. So a lot of times I'd mix a song and they said, oh, we want to work on this for a day or two, take a couple of days off and come back to it. But we never took a mix down. Everything got done and then it was done. It wasn't a recall.
Right.
Not one whole record. But lots of printing of the same mix for different reasons, and reasons being that it was all printed to analog tape, and they were very, very meticulous, and that was the word I was looking for about the vocoders too. But the Clarks has taken effect. They were very meticulous and wanted to hear it every way. So since the mixes were automated, we would do it at the level that I thought was right, hitting the tape. And then we'd go master fader down a couple dB, hit the tape softer for less saturation, then up a couple dB. So every mix was printed 3 times at different levels to part. And then they'd listen and see which one they liked the characteristics of the tape best on. Plus we printed to 3 machines simultaneously.
Wow.
All half-inch, 2 running at 30 IPS, 1 having the stock, they were all Ampex ATRs. 1 with the stock Ampex heads, 1 with the ATR high fluxivity heads. Then the third one was running at 15 half-inch tape, and that had the ARIA electronics. So there'd actually be 9 prints of every of every pass, of every song, 3 machines, plus a DSD Sonoma doing everything in DSD at the same time, which I thought was the best sounding one, but I was overridden on that. But yeah, I mean, I could see why too. The analog had a character that was just perfect for the album. So anyways, also they didn't want any variation of how the machine acted on different tapes. So every time there was a real change, they'd want to check the alignment of the machine, and the tech would come in. And it wasn't just alignment like, okay, this is flat, the meters look right, the bias looks right from the meters. They brought in an audio precision and did a frequency distortion sweep on all 3 machines between every real change.
Wow. That's crazy. And that was all their idea to do all this?
Yeah, they were very meticulous. So that's why it took all summer. A lot of it, there was more time involved in technical work like that than there was in mixing.
Wow.
And there was an
that's crazy. How many techs worked on that? Was it 1?
2.
2.
Yeah. I mean, there was 2. A lot of times it was just 1 at a time, but sometimes there were. Sometimes if more than one guy was free, they'd work on it together. But it was. They wanted to print stems, but since they were doing everything analog, I didn't have to be there for that, which is great because I would have gone crazy. Is that after the mix was done, they would just print, just solo new stuff and just print everything to half-inch. That was the stems.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's crazy.
It was something you don't see anymore.
Right. Yeah. Would you say that was one of the more meticulous records that you've ever worked on, or?
Probably the most. Definitely the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool, man. I know that there's more to ask about that. Okay, here's a question. Someone's asking if you would share what reverb you used in Doing It Right and how you approached it. And do you think of it as an instrument because it's so upfront? It's pure magic, they say.
I'll have to listen to that one again. I know we didn't use very many reverbs on that album. We used there was the main reverb was a plate, an EMT 140, and there was a we used an EMT 250, also the early digital reverb, and Bricasti, and on the orchestral, was mostly Capitol's live chambers, which were recorded on separate tracks when we were doing the orchestra. And some, I don't know which, it wasn't Doing It Right, but it was a couple vocals that they brought the recordings back to Capitol and just played it through the live chamber and recorded that. So we had that as an option during mixing. But I would say most of the vocals on that record is the EMT 140. Little pre-delay in front of it, little high-end boost, and that's about it. Now every EMT 140 sounds different, so we found one there that sounded really, really nice.
Wow. Did you audition a few, or?
Oh yeah, I think they have 2 or 3 there. We checked them all out and got the best one we liked the best.
That's awesome. Did you find it to be a lot of fun to have so many options, or did you feel like you were held back at any point by that?
No, I think it was a lot of fun. Usually something like that would be a problem because usually there'd be time limitations or budget limitations, or on this album, nobody ever said hurry up. Everybody involved was into experimenting, into doing it as good as we could.
That's awesome. Wow. How long were the days?
Some were like just a few hours, 5-6 hours. Some were like 10, 12 hours. Some were nothing. I didn't have to be in a lot of times when they were working on stuff.
That's great.
It was actually a pretty leisurely summer. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Well, great. What do you think? Think we've gone through a lot of the Clorox and answered a lot of the questions here.
When I was doing that, I don't know if you can see it. It got on my shirt. Now there's all red bleached spots on my shirt here.
Oh no. It's still fine though. You can put that in your bloodstream. Don't worry about it. Cool.
Yeah. Now,
okay.
Now when I'm out to prevent coronavirus, I can just suck on my shirt.
You won't have to carry the bottle with you. Very efficient. Cool. Well, yeah, I think that's an amazing amount of information, and thank you so much for all the time that you put in, and more importantly, thank you for all of your contributions to the art of making records and all of that stuff. It's such an honor to talk to you and to have you on here.
Great to talk to you too. I'd love to do it again, and I'm gonna definitely get some better streaming equipment.
Awesome. I'm excited.
I want to be able to use a nice camera instead of this webcam. So got to work on. Can't have good audio without good video.
Right, and vice versa, and all that, of course. Let's keep nerding out about the streaming stuff offline. I'm really interested in that Blackmagic thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody who's listening, and I really enjoyed this.
Super fun. Everybody, we'll be back again next week for another week of the stay-at-home webinar series. The schedule is posted at puremix.net. Make sure you go check it out. We have a really, really fun week lined up. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Mick, thank you again.
Thank you. How many people showed up for this one? Since I'm only seeing our feed, I don't see how many.
Yeah, I only see the crowdcast, but we're simulcasting the YouTube and Instagram and all that. So I'll find out what the stats are in just a little bit here and send them over. Sweet. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Wondering how many people are interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so far it's been quite a lot. We've had a lot of viewers, and I'm sure they'd love to see you again. So, awesome.
Okay.
All right,
Later.
bye,
I'm
everybody.
Bye bye.